I'm sure you're aware by now, but CEX have just made some changes to retro. And that change is that they now show you whether it comes with or without a manual, which may sound trivial to many, but that is actually huge. And it's something that many of us have been crying out for years at this point. But with that comes the inevitable, and that is the price hike. They have upped the price of games that come with a manual versus those that come without the manual. And of course you can still buy unboxed, and they have that ever elusive mint copy. Side note, if you've ever bought anything from CEX that is mint, can you let me know what that entails? Is it literally just a brand new copy of a game? Because a Mega Drive game in mint condition to me is someone took the cellophane off it, put it on their shelf for 30 years and never played it. That's what mint means, or at least it does to me. If you put something on eBay and you say mint condition, perfect condition, someone expects that to turn up brand new. Is that what CEX do, or does it have some blemishes? Let me know if you've ever bought one. So most games have gone up by about £5, so that's how much they effectively charge for a manual in CEX. I am genuinely wondering whether at some point they are going to start trading in manuals. I think that might be a little bit too far, but it is possible, I guess. So we're going to look at Bart vs Space Mutants on the Mega Drive, just as a quick example here. So unboxed, £15. And again, another side note here, I'm pretty sure this game was a lot cheaper not that long ago. I have a copy of this game, and that's kind of why I'm using it as an example. I went through all of my Mega Drive games the other day just to see the price difference now between when I bought them and, you know, with or without a manual, and how much my collection was worth kind of thing, which is a little bit surprising, and I urge you to do that if you have any of these like retro games that the prices have been changed for. But this, I'm almost certain I didn't spend more than 15 on this, and if I did, it was 20 absolute tops. It does come with a manual. The label's in really good condition, which is something that CEX do and do not look at, really. It kind of depends who you get, what store you go to and things. The manual isn't great. It's got a little bit of a rip in the corner. There might be some discolor in there. I can't really tell whether it's just a print or not, but you know, it's there, it's intact, it's usable, right? And I'm happy it's there and complete. But this has gone up a lot. So like I mentioned, unboxed, 15 quid. Without the manual, this is I think 20 or 22. It's on screen for you. And of course, box with a manual, 30. There is no way I paid £30 for that. Like I said, I think I paid 20 or less. I actually think it was 15. It was documented in the free game collection. I don't know what episode it was, and if I can find it, I will put it on screen. But if not, then if you know, let me know how much I paid for it. I usually keep the receipts in these things, but for some reason I haven't with that one. But my point is, they are charging considerably more for this game with the manual versus without. So it's literally an £8 difference for the manual. Now, I'm guessing, I mean, you would assume anyway, that the price between without and with the manual is going to be dependent on the rarity of the manual, how many they have in stock that have a manual versus those that don't. And that will give them a general idea of how rare a copy of this with the manual is, because I have seen some games that are only £3 more, and then most of them are £5. So for example, again, a pretty common game here, Aladdin. Aladdin has always been £10 across the board, and without the manual now, it is £10. But with the manual, it's 15. That is a pretty substantial price increase if you ask me. A £5 increase on what is a pretty common game is a little bit mad. I was fully expecting it to be £2 or £3 more, but 5 is a bit of a jump. And you do see that with quite a lot of the other fairly common Mega Drive games as well. Now, I'm using Mega Drive as an example, of course. They've added this to a lot of different systems. We're talking SNES, we're talking PS1, Sega Saturn, N64. The list goes on. Now, of course, with the downside of the price increase, there is a way you can take advantage of this, and some people have mentioned it. Why not go through your collection, have a look at the games that you're not that bothered by, check to see if they have a manual, and of course if they do, there is a very good chance that they've gone up in price. And with the price increase comes the trade-in price increase. They have gone a little bit mad on this, in my opinion. They are asking far more than you would expect, or rather giving far more than you would expect. There is a genuine way here that you can take advantage of this. I'm sure most of you have collections that haven't cost you much, but maybe you've offset the price here or there. For example, my collection hasn't cost me anything out of pocket, and that's been documented through the series, and a lot of you have said that that's what you do as well. So a lot of you will be sat on collections that are free or near free. Maybe they've paid for themselves at some point or other, but you probably have games there with manuals now that are are worth far more than you ever paid for them, and maybe you don't even care about them, you don't play them. Why not try and take advantage of this? Because I fully believe that the price increase here is too high. They've aimed for the sun and they are going to land on the moon, and that is kind of fine in a way. The problem that they have here is that they've gone so high with certain games, and I say certain, with most games they've gone quite high. I don't think people are going to be paying £15 for Aladdin with a manual, because it's too much of a jump, and it's a pretty common game. Now, this is not financial advice, nor am I telling you to go and take everything you own into CEX, because that's not what I'm saying. But my opinion is these prices will remain high for a while, and then once they realize that they're not selling anywhere near as many with manuals as they expected to, the price will come down. And of course, with a price decrease means that the trade price will decrease as well. There are going to be some games, and to be fair, this one is a pretty good example of that I could take into CEX, get a voucher for, I think it's £20, and if I did pay 15, which I think I did, that's a £5 trade profit, if you will. And there are plenty of other examples of this across loads of different platforms. You don't have to just look at Mega Drive, for example, but it's the retro console that I collect for, so that's why we're looking at it. And I know what you're thinking, well, why am I going to trade in these games when I want to keep them? And that's fine, of course. If you do want to keep them and you don't want to trade them in, don't do it, obviously. But if you do have games there that you're not that bothered about and you're thinking, well, I could do because the price has gone up now, what's going to happen in a few months' time when CEX realise that they can't shift these games because they've just priced them too high? The price comes down. The downside of that, though, is that CEX have a far bigger influence on the market than anyone gives them credit for. It's not as cut and dry as go and trade them in, get cash for them if you want, or get vouchers for them because they offer such great prices right now, which is absolutely true. They do. Then you can use those vouchers on whatever you want in CEX, or keep them, save them up, whatever you want. You will find these games elsewhere cheaper because CEX have just gone above and beyond the price. And whereas that is kind of true, there is a caveat there, in my opinion, and that is the influence. CEX have a massive influence on the market. I've sold enough games on eBay and gone to enough car boot sales and gone to enough charity shops to know that CEX basically set the price across the board wherever you go in the UK. The US is a different market, and yes, they can have an influence as well. And I've already seen it on eBay. Games have started to even out on prices, and this is absolutely no exception. This is $29.99 plus postage on eBay with the manual. I guarantee you that wasn't the price a month ago. People would have been asking a little bit less, and because CEX have upped their price, everyone on eBay have upped their price. And you can go and look at other games such as PlayStation 1 games and Super Nintendo games, and it is exactly the same across the board. If you don't have a manual, yes, some people are still trying to shoot for that sort of ceiling, but they will lower it down in line with the CEX price. And I absolutely guarantee that independent video game stores are going to do the same as well. Most of these places will look at CEX to price their games, and in fact there was one, it's closed now, which is a bit of a shame. I went there the other day and I went to record a video in there and to trade some stuff in. It was Insane Games in Street. Street is the name of the place, and they were price matching CEX for pretty much everything. They would beat them on trade, they undercut them on prices. They were such a good store. They do still have others around the place, but that was the one that I would go to because it was just easier for me to get to. I was very disappointed to see that they closed down. It wasn't that they closed down because they couldn't compete with CEX or that they just lost too much money. The building that they were in was being repurposed for something else, and they were basically kicked out. I don't know whether they're going to move or not, but anyway, they were literally price matching CEX for everything. Why? Because CEX are essentially the market leader. So the idea of taking your video games into CEX, getting the voucher and then going to buy them somewhere else just that little bit cheaper might be a bit of a naive opinion. And of course, if you were serious about this, you are definitely better off researching the prices of other places before you do this. So go to your local independent video game store if you have one, maybe visit a boot sale and just see what the prices are doing, because if you go and look at eBay, you can already see that the prices have changed. People have started to price match and compare to CEX. There are a few things that we haven't discussed, of course, and one of them is that the only change here is you know now whether it comes with or without a manual. It literally is as basic as that, but you don't know the condition of the manual. You buy it online, it turns up, and the manual could be trashed. It might have come from a store who have much lower standards than your local store, for example. My local store have pretty high standards. They are quite fussy with certain things, and even though that does get on my nerves sometimes when I'm trying to trade stuff in, I'm very grateful for it when I buy something. So it swings and roundabouts. But there are certain CEX stores that are just, it's almost like international waters. They do not care. They will take anything and everything, and they will sell anything and everything. So you could buy a game with a manual and it doesn't have a cover, or it could be just trashed, covered in coffee stains, rips everywhere. You're not happy with the condition of that. You've paid an extra £5 or £8 in some cases, maybe more. And yes, of course, you can absolutely take it back. But just because it says with a manual versus without a manual, there's still a whole other can of worms that have been opened by simply putting those two options. I think PS1 is the sort of most recent console, if you will, that they've done this for. But it does beg the question, why not PS2? Why not Xbox 360, PS3? The majority, and I would say like 99% of games up to the PS3 360 era came with manuals. Yes, there are absolutely games that didn't come with manuals, but those generations, generally speaking, they came with manuals. I'm going to grab one off the shelf. I'm not going to look at the shelf. I'm just going to grab it, and you can see that I'm still looking at the camera. I've got no idea what this game is. This is Dead or Alive 5 on the Xbox 360, and it comes with a manual. The majority of them will come with manuals, and to be fair, you'd be hard pressed to find one and indeed buy one that just doesn't have one. Most people just kept the manuals in the cases, but I would much rather have my 360 game come with a manual than I would come without a manual. So are they going to start doing this for 360, PS3, PS2? At the moment, I'm not sure whether someone would be willing to pay more for a game on the 360, for example, that comes with a manual versus one that doesn't. I don't think I would at the moment. That doesn't mean that in 10, 15, 20 years time, when we're at the same sort of level as the Mega Drive in terms of time gone by, whether I would. I think I might actually be interested in it then, because of course it's much further into the future. These games are even older, and it's just that little bit more important to have that complete game. So why is that even relevant for me to speak of right now? Well, this has happened, and if I said to you 6 months ago, look, in 6 months, retro is going to go up in price for the most part, and the reason for that is going to be the manual. Would you have then made it a priority to maybe go after games with manuals, maybe try and pick up these manuals cheaper, not necessarily to sell on, but to fill out your collection for the games that didn't have manuals? Or maybe you would have gone into CEX and looked to buy more games while they were cheaper, because now, of course, if you want to do that, it's going to cost you substantially more. If you go and value your collection against CEX based on whether you have the manual or don't have the manual, you'll notice that it's going to be a much different price to that of 2 or 3 months ago. So it is absolutely reasonable to expect them to do this for PlayStation 2, PS3 and 360 at some point. And I know you're thinking, well, why stop there? Why not PS4? Well, PS4, Xbox One, they don't really come with manuals. There are going to be a handful of games that do, but for the most part, they don't really do manuals anymore. So I think it will stop at the 360, Wii, even Wii. Well, I don't think Wii U came with manuals either. So yeah, the 360, PS3 and the Wii generation, that's where the cutoff is, I think. But at some point, I can absolutely see them bringing this in. So if you collect for any one of those machines or back that they've not done this for yet, you may want to start getting on that. You may want to go after these games with manuals before this happens. I don't think they're going to start charging £5 more per game, or even £8 more in some cases, of course, but they will maybe charge a little bit more. The difference is, of course, that there are thousands of games on the Xbox 360, PS3 compared to that of the Mega Drive. So this change would have taken CEX a long time. I don't know the size of the team that they have working on it, but I would imagine that this has been months in the making, because just to go through all of the Mega Drive games, for example, and to add Aladdin with manual boxed to the website, change the price of it, and to do that for every single game across every single platform, it would have taken ages. Even with a team of 100 people, it probably would have taken a while, because there are so many games. And then to feed that information to the stores, this is what you're looking for, this is what you can and cannot do, and all the rest of it, to do that then for PlayStation 2, original Xbox, Wii, PS3, 360 and any other console that I'm forgetting, that would have taken even longer again, because there are thousands of those games. You just think about the amount of PlayStation 2 games there are, or 360 games. I mean, that's a lot of games. So it is very reasonable to believe that this is already in the pipeline, or at least they're thinking about it. Maybe they've not started it yet, it's coming in the future. So if you want to get your PlayStation 2 games, your 360 games with manuals, you are definitely better off acting now than regretting it in 6 months to a year's time when CEX bring this in, because I guarantee you if this is a success, they won't hesitate to bring that in because they can make more money again. The big question, of course, is are you going to take advantage of this? Because there are definitely some ways you can gain from it. I myself, probably not so much. I do have a couple of games on the PlayStation 1 that I've been trying to sell that I couldn't sell in boot sales, for example, for like 3 or 4 quid that CEX give me £5 or £6 in trade for, because they do come with manuals. And maybe it was because people weren't aware of it, or CEX have just gone above and beyond, which is what I think they have done in some cases. I'll show you those games in the next episode. They have manuals, the inlays are in good condition, the discs are tradeworthy, the cases are okay, the hinges are fine, but whether they are tradeworthy or not based on my local CEX standards, I will find out when I take them in. That will be in the next episode. Let me know in the comments, have you tried to take any of your games in, or are you going to? On the whole, I do believe this is a step in the right direction from CEX, but it does have a couple of downsides to it. Biggest one, of course, is going to be the influence on the market and how much it's now going to cost you for certain games, whereas a couple of months ago they were down in price. Have you noticed any big price increases? Let me know in the comments. Do you think this is a step in the right direction from CEX? If you want to check out another video from me, you can click here, and until the next time, goodbye.